Welcome to DAS008.com. This week we're sponsored by Emico, by Pyramid Media, and by a new sponsor, Neocon Express, which is a trade fair that's going to be here in Los Angeles in August of 2007. And my name is Eames Demetrius, and at DAS008.com, design, architecture, and sustainability. And every week we try to share something kind of neat. And this week it's going to be behind-the-scenes tour at the Henry Ford, which you might know as the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan. And I was there, and I got a behind-the-scenes tour from Mark Greuther, who's a curator of industry at that museum, and he took us through the light bulb collection. And it's pretty incredible. So we'll watch it, and we'll talk about it afterwards.
At one point, the sort of main competitors for Edison, but if you look at how complex that is, you realize why. You don't know much about Sawyer Man anymore.
And then that was a competitor that came after.
Yeah, it's generally regarded that prior to Edison, there were, I think, at least 20 inventors who came up with lamps that were, broadly speaking, workable. But practicality is the watchword, and also workability in regards to a system. It's one thing to come up with a discrete, single artifact that functions in a certain fashion. But if you're going to derive any kind of financial benefit from it, make any real difference, it's going to have to be allied with a system that can distribute it. I mean, and essentially that really is the Edison achievement. It's not inventing a light bulb, it's inventing a workable electrical system. Now these light bulbs were all collected by a gentleman called William Hammer, who was a very close collaborator of Thomas Edison's on the light bulb project, who went on to become a representative of Edison's, finally an independent sort of electrical engineer, right at the point when the notion of an electrical engineer became possible and understood. But he had a hankering for the light bulbs, and because of his position, because he was there at the creation, if you will, he assembled this unparalleled collection. Some of these are absolute one-offs. Some are just so rare that even though they might have been produced in quantity then, they're the sole survivors. Light bulb collectors love the collection but get aggravated by it because they're all set in these turned wooden bases, and it means they can't see the base of the lamp. And if you're a light bulb collector, you want to see the whole thing. Look, they've also got his handwritten labels here. Often he sort of mentions when it was given to him at some electrical convention, so it's really got that flavor of being something hand-picked and carried back in the luggage, if you will. I mean, I'm awfully fond of this collection, other than the fact that other than the story behind it, because again, it shows that multiplicity of solutions to what's essentially a single problem. You know, how do you make electricity light a room for you? They're also absolutely exquisite examples of hand craftsmanship. I mean, the other thing about light bulbs that always strikes me is that people think of those as sort of crystalline technological devices, but certainly in this era, the skills needed, the materials that would have to be manipulated, and the manner in which these things would have to be put together, it's more like jewelry. It's got more in common with scientific apparatus. I mean, there's clamps in there that would do justice to a jeweler. Just amazing. Some were hugely unsuccessful. Some of these are just mere slight incremental steps in the development of a system. I mean, Edison was not alone in that field. There was a sort of understanding that electric power had a lot going for it, and that rather spurred him on in a peculiar form of competition. He was supremely self-confident. I think he loved the notion that there were other people trying to catch up, and he kept ahead. But really, there were an awful lot of people playing in this field. It's your classic example of a breakthrough occurring, a lot of people moving in. I mean, the 1880s are this just hotbed of electrical competitors. It's got a nice label on it. I can't read it. Very early tungsten lamp. So could someone else do a collection like this now? They'd need an awful lot of money, and ultimately probably not when it really comes down to it.
So that was pretty amazing. I personally, like I said, had never really thought about a light bulb collection per se. And there are a lot of things, though, that come to mind when you see that. First of all, you sort of wonder, well, what would the equivalent be of a computer collection in this day and age? Also, Mark's point that there were a lot of people who were pursuing the idea. Edison wasn't necessarily the first to have a bulb that produced light, but it was a system. I think that's a big part of the whole design idea, is that you're not just trying to create a beautiful one-off, you're trying to create a system that gives people a rich and wonderful experience or achieves whatever goal that you're trying to do. Certainly that's true of furniture or any of these mass-produced items, that it's not just the one-off, it's the whole thing. And I had never really thought of Edison as being a designer as well as being an inventor. The objects themselves I thought were quite beautiful, and it was a treat to look at them. And I also when I was watching, was thinking about collections, and this whole idea of having a little bit of everything. That sometimes it's the things that didn't succeed that are just as interesting as the things that did. And I think that that's one of the beauties of the Henry Ford's collection, is that Henry Ford literally sought to collect something of everything. He did it for combine harvesters. He did it for wrenches. They have a very complete collection of all sorts of different items from everyday life, and as such, it gives us a different perspective than maybe a fine art collection. Not better or worse, but just a different one. So next week we're going to take another look at another part of the collection, and I hope you'll join us again. DAS008.com.